Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle Ruger-Marowski. I am the Associate Director of Partnerships at Parker Dewey, and I'm very excited to tell you all today about how micro-internships and some tips for getting started. This month's theme, if you will, is protecting yourself and protecting your micro-internship applications from being overlooked. So we're going to talk about those tips and tricks and best practices for making sure your profile and your application responses are in good shape. But first, we are going to start by talking about what micro-internships are. For those who have joined in since I said it before, we do have a poll going, so I would love to know what challenges you are facing as you are trying to figure out your career goals, get internships, all that good stuff. Because this is really instrumental in why micro-internships were created in the first place. So what we see on the screen are some real examples of some students who face some of those same challenges. And if you're facing some challenges that you don't see in that poll that you want to highlight, please feel free to use that chat. I am keeping an eye on it. So maybe you're like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't want to commit to a 15 to 18 week internship right out the gate. Why is there not an opportunity for me to try things? Maybe you're in a major that you realized a little bit too late isn't exactly for you. And you're trying to figure out, well, how can I make a pivot? How can I make experience or get experience in a different area at this stage in the game? Maybe you're looking for internships and you are only seeing opportunities that are unpaid, and you're looking at your budget and you're looking at the opportunities and you're going, these two things don't line up. I can't afford to do these unpaid things. Maybe you're just overwhelmed by your choices. Maybe you're struggling to get that first foot in the door. But whatever your challenge is, I want you to take solace in the fact that you are not alone. In fact, we have at least two people, most of them have more, but at least two people in every single one of those categories that said, this is a challenge that I'm facing. As you can see on the screen, they're challenges that other students have faced too. Now, I promise this webinar is just not going to be a downer. The good news is micro-internships can help with all of these challenges. So defining what exactly is a micro-internship. To put it succinctly, they are short-term paid professional projects that you do with real companies. To dig in a little bit deeper to each of those elements, when we say short-term, they're typically somewhere between 10 and 40 hours total. So not 10 to 40 hours a week, not 10 to 40 hours a month, 10 to 40 hours, and then the project is complete. And I say project because these are all focused on getting something specific or a set of somethings done. So to give some examples, a company might say, I need a marketing email campaign created for a specific demographic. They might need someone to do research on a topic that they just haven't had the time, but they're interested in, and they want some actionable insights. Maybe they want someone to do something as simple as design a flyer. But these are all examples of great micro internships. They're using the skills that you all are currently learning in your degree program and give you an opportunity to apply them to real world scenarios. And you're getting paid while you do it, because every single micro internship on the Parker Dewey platform is paid. We know a lot of you can't afford to spend your time on something unless it's compensated. And these aren't simulations, they aren't hypotheticals, they're real projects, so it makes sense that you get paid. Looks like about 30% of the folks in the room today said, I just can't afford to take an unpaid internship. I see we've got some questions already. Love to see it. Although not all of you have seen them, I'm hosting panelists. And there's someone asking, hey, I would love to get feedback from companies to improve on areas when I'm not selected for a micro internship. And that's fantastic thought. But I also want to give you all some insight into the company focus of this. The reason companies really appreciate this and why they post projects is because it is an on-demand, easy resource for them. So we're going to talk about how quickly these micro internships move. Most companies are posting projects with the intent of selecting someone and kicking off within a week, because these are things that they need done sooner rather than later. That's why they're using Parker Dewey. So with that in mind, if we required companies to leave feedback for every application they received, even those they didn't select, unfortunately, it's no longer that easy resource for them, and we're going to have less companies inclined to post micro internships. But that is why we do have other resources like our office hours. If you want feedback on your profile, if you're struggling to get selected, I would recommend coming to our office hours. That's a little bit more of an interactive session. Today's more of a presentation. Office hours are more interactive. The link is in the chat, and we, the Parker Dewey team, are happy to give you some feedback so you can still, take that into account, make adjustments, kind of get what you're looking for. Oh, someone else is asking another question. I sometimes don't know if it's too late to apply or if there is still time. This is a great question and a common one because when companies post, it's automatically set up that they're planning to select someone within a week of the micro internship being posted. Now, they can adjust that, but what happens every once in a while is a company will post with that automatic setting, we'll get to a week later, and it might be one of two things. Option number one is life may have just gotten busy. They may not have had time to select somebody yet. So we've reached out to them. We've said, hey, your kickoff date has passed. Are you still planning to pick someone? And if the project is still there, even if the start date is in the past, that means they're still planning to select someone. It's still worth your time to apply, even if the start date is in the past. The other thing that might happen is maybe they haven't gotten a candidate that they're excited about yet or that they want to select. So they're just leaving it open until they get someone. In that case, still worth your time to apply. So to respond to that question, if you see the project, there's still time to apply, but don't wait on it. If it's something you're interested in, they do tend to move quickly. So other elements of micro internship, these are all professional projects. So again, using skills that you're earning in your degree programs. And we really do see opportunities from all different types of industries, all different types of departments. Now, another common question I get is, are there micro internships for XYZ industry? Or I'm not seeing micro internships for XYZ industry. Obviously, insert whatever industry you're interested in into XYZ. If that is the case, I have two tips for you. One is log in regularly, again, because they move super quickly. The other is if you wanted to take the initiative to reach out to companies of interest and inquire about that company that you're interested in posting a micro internship for you. We also have a webinar that we do pretty regularly. I just put the link in the chat where we coach you on how you can do that professionally and hopefully get them to post an opportunity with you in mind in your area of interest. So if that's something that you're struggling with, take down the notes for this other webinar coming up. That is going to be helpful as well. And thank you to everyone who's asking questions in the chat. Love the engagement. So hopefully, when I was explaining what these micro internships are and answering those questions, the benefits for y'all were clear. But just in case they weren't, really want to spell them out. One is that accessibility. I think I forgot to highlight, but most of these projects are remote, meaning you can do them from anywhere you have a Wi-Fi connection. You're getting real experience. Again, these aren't simulations, they aren't hypotheticals, and you get to add them to your resume or your portfolio. Now, something to note, though, is while there are a wide range of companies who are posting micro internships, regardless of whether you're doing a project for a Fortune 500 company or a mom and pop shop down the street, your employer of record, meaning the person you're going, well, we're not a person, the company you're going to list on your resume for this experience is Parker Dewey. So it doesn't matter what company you're doing the project with. On your resume, you're going to list this as an independent consultant or an independent contractor of Parker Dewey. We are also the ones who are going to be processing your pay to you. So if you get in your micro internship, you have questions about the pay timeline, about the pay anything, send those to Parker Dewey. The company that you're working with is not necessarily going to have those answers. Flexibility tends to be big. Because these are all project-based, how it works is once you're selected, you're encouraged to set up a kickoff meeting with the professional that has posted the project. So you're going to get to connect with them, get all the details, all the context you need. But because you then have everything you need, you're going to be able to work on it independently as long as you're meeting the deadline. Now, depending on the project, there may be some details along the way, or it may be that you're just off and running and you don't really need too many more check-ins, but that flexibility tends to be really beneficial. Since you're meeting with that professional, you're expanding your network. For those of you who said, I don't know what I want to do, I want to explore, looks like that was about 52% of you. This is a great way to efficiently do so. And a lot of companies are using this intentionally as a way to build a pipeline to longer opportunities. So while not guaranteed, there's always that chance that if you do a great job on your micro internship, there could be a traditional internship or a full-time job offer. We have seen that at the end of the project. And I know I already highlighted it, but highlighting again because we know it's important. You get paid for every project you complete. I see someone said that they got a phishing email from Parker Dewey. So this month's theme is safety, and they're wondering how did that happen? So this is a great question. I don't even need to make it private because I want everyone to be aware of this. When you're applying for opportunities on the Parker Dewey platform, the company is able, only after you've applied to their project, to message you in platform. And that's where we encourage communication to take place until selection has occurred, because we can then ensure the safety, the legitimacy of the conversations on the platform. But what can happen is if you upload your resume, which is highly encouraged, everyone should upload their resume. If you leave your contact information on that resume, your phone number, your email, your address, I wouldn't recommend putting your address on any version of your resume, but if you have it on there, companies see your resume with your profile. And that is how they could potentially contact you if it's an unsavory character. Now, we are putting eyes on all of these projects when they kick off. So if someone selects you, at that point, if you haven't got an email from Parker Dewey, you know that we're keeping an eye on it, things are legitimate. But if someone reaches out to you outside of the platform before you've been selected, that is a red flag. So that is why I encourage everyone, when you're uploading your resume to Parker Dewey, upload a version that does not have your contact information. It helps us protect you. So thank you for the question. All right, so who can complete these micro internships? Is it worth you hanging around for the rest of the webinar? Micro interns do need to be 18 or older, and these are open to students or recent graduates. There is no official cutoff for recent graduates. As long as you're trying to figure out where you're going to land, what your next career step is going to be, this can work well for you. Now, if you're someone who is already established in your field and you're not looking to make a switch, this is not a platform where you're going to make a freelance living, because companies are engaging on Parker Dewey specifically as a way, a lot of times, to create a pipeline towards something longer term. And if they see that you're gainfully, fully employed, full time, and you're not looking to make a switch, your application is probably not going to get as much attention. Now, if you have years of full-time experience and you are making a career shift, make sure you make that clear in your profile. That's going to help your applications get more attention. International students can and do micro internships, but in terms of the specifics, connect with International Student Services at your institution. Every school has their own process, their own rules for CPT, and they're going to be able to know if you're far enough along in your program to do pre-completion OPT, because you do need to have work authorization. So make sure you're connecting and confirming your eligibility if you're an international student before you start applying. Micro internships are also open to undocumented students. All you need to have is a valid ITIN number. So at this point, hopefully we are all seeing the benefits. We're interested. We want to get selected. So we're going to walk you through step by step some of those steps for making your profile stand out. Before we jump in, just a reminder, who is Parker Dewey in all of this? How do they connect? We are the micro internship people. So regardless of the company you're working with, again, we're the ones that are keeping an eye on the platform. We're the ones that are going to pay you if you're selected for micro internships. We're the ones that you put on your resume after you have done a Parker Dewey micro internship experience. We're also the ones you reach out to if there's a question, confusion, concern, if something just isn't going the way you expect and you don't know how to handle it, we are your folks. So with that covered, if you don't already have a Parker Dewey account, I'm going to put a link in the chat here. If I find it, I got too many tabs open. Here we go. This is your link to get started. So if you don't already have an account, hit this right now. If you do already have a Parker Dewey account, this is a good time to get logged into that account so you can apply some of these tips and resources as we go through. So I am going to start with an account that I already have. Now, if you are filling out your profile for the first time, you're just creating your account, you're going to get asked some of these questions in a slightly different order, but they're still the same questions. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to get started by going through all of the pieces of your profile that are required, that must be filled in before you can start applying to opportunities. Then what we're going to do is we're going to backtrack and we're going to talk about those pieces that aren't required, but are really going to help your profile and your application stand out. So are highly recommended and encouraged. So to get started, one of the things that are going to be required, obviously, name, email address, basic stuff. Then we're going to ask for your current address and your permanent address. Now, a couple things to clarify here. When we say address, we don't mean full address. We just want city and state. And I know some of you may be thinking, well, why do you want my location? Didn't this lady just say most of these are remote? And this comes back to that goal a lot of companies have of wanting to create a pipeline towards longer term opportunities. So it's not relevant for every project, but some of them may want to know, are you either in my area now, or will you be in my area during your winter break, your summer break, your spring break? And that's why we ask for permanent address. Because they might want to engage someone that could conceivably do an in-person opportunity in the future if you do a great job on the micro internship. So again, not relevant for every project, but relevant for enough. That's why we require the information. You'll also be asked to put in your work authorization, so make sure you put that in there. And then the next required step is going to be that education section. And one of the reasons we require this is because companies do have the ability to feature projects exclusively to specific schools that they want to engage. So that's why if you have attended and graduated from multiple institutions, you're going to want to add all your educational institutions that you're either currently attending or have graduated from. So to be clear, if you just took a single class somewhere over the summer, you didn't get a certificate there, you're not currently enrolled there, that does not get added to this section. This is only for institutions where you're currently enrolled or have graduated. So you're going to want to make sure you put in that education information, one, because it's required and you can't move forward without it, but two, because depending on your school, you may find that there are additional opportunities on the platform available to you. The next required section, we're going to hop all the way down to this demographic section. I want to highlight some things about this. One is that even though the questions are required, if for some reason you don't want to disclose, you have the ability to say prefer not to disclose. But I also want to make it clear this information is not attached to your application in a way that the companies who make decisions can see. This is blind to them. One of our goals at Parker Dewey is just to make sure that our opportunities are accessible and they're equitable. So collecting this information on the back end, we're the only folks that get to see it, but it allows us to know how well we're doing with that goal. So that's why that demographic section is there and required. So we have now done the basics of what is required, but as you can see, there's a lot more that can be done. And this is where we're going to start backtracking to some of those pieces that aren't required, but can really make the difference between you sending out an application and it getting ignored versus you sending out an application and getting selected. So going back to those best practices, one of the first things here you'll notice is you have the opportunity to upload a profile photo. And some of you may have heard from career services or other folks, never, ever add a photo to your resume. And those folks are your friends. They are absolutely correct. But we encourage you to think about your Parker Dewey profile less like a resume and more like a LinkedIn profile, where it is appropriate to add that little level of personalization and to have a photo. If for some reason you're still not comfortable having your photo, I would recommend uploading a logo from your school or a logo that kind of indicates what you're interested in, just to show that you've taken the time to personalize this. The next thing we're going to talk about is the personal statement. So you can see from the preview, and this kind of gives you an idea of what companies see, that is often very front and center. But with personal statements, you may have heard this term before in terms of graduate school applications or even undergraduate applications, and you might be thinking essay. This is not intended to be an essay. In fact, you will see you are only limited to 255 characters. So this is supposed to be a really nice, short and sweet place for you to kind of say a little bit about you and your goals on the platform. Oh, I see we've got a couple people with the same question, so I'm going to pause before going farther on the personal statement. Somebody's saying, I haven't seen any cyber opportunities. Is this geared more towards business majors? Fantastic question. And again, one I get a lot. So if you're looking for an XYZ opportunity, in this case, the XYZ is cyber, one is to log in regularly. Another would be to maybe let career services at your institution know, hey, I really want to do a micro internship. This is what works with my schedule. This is what works for me. Are we sharing this with the employers that already recruit from our institution? Because oftentimes they can help get the word out to folks if those companies who already want to recruit from your school realize, Well, these students may not have time for our traditional internship, or they're really interested in engaging in this way. That might lead them to push some micro internships. And then the other advice is, again, to do this creating your own opportunities webinar. This will give you tips on reaching out to companies that tend to have cyber opportunities so they can get some of those cyber micro internships posted to you. So it really varies depending on time of year, depending on company needs, and depending on your school. So those are some of the action items, if you're not seeing the opportunities that you'd like to see at this moment, that you can take. Hopefully that's helpful. So going back to this personal statement, I'm going to share a resource with y'all. We have professional communication tips for micro interns. And one of those first tips is about setting up your personal statement. So I'm going to go ahead and put this link in the chat, personal statement tips. And we're going to talk about a formula that will help you write your personal statement if you're looking at it going, I have no idea what to do with these 255 characters. Now, to be clear, you don't have to use this formula. You can write something different, but it's a good place to start if you're struggling to get started. So the first thing you might want to do is consider a couple of different adjectives. So words that genuinely describe you, but are also relevant to the types of opportunities that you would like to be doing on Parker Dewey. So for example, if you're interested in social media type projects and you are genuinely an organized person, that might be a good adjective to highlight because they often are dealing with lots of dates, lots of assets. Being organized can be very helpful. If you're interested in cyber, that often requires a very analytical person. So if that genuinely describes you, that could be a solid adjective. So as we go through the rest of the formula, you all are already on it. I love it, but I have another poll for you, kind of asking, it might vary a little bit from industry to industry, but across the board, which one of those adjectives is typically not going to be a good fit to include in your personal statement? So while you all are working on that, the next section is what are a couple of skills, experiences, or strengths that are, again, relevant to the types of projects you would like to be doing on Parker Dewey? Do you have a certificate in cybersecurity or data analytics or something like that? Do you have experience with specific coding languages? Do you have experience writing press releases? Those are just examples from a few different industries. If you're in graphic design, do you know how to use Canva or Adobe Creative Suite? Things that you'll want to highlight that employers may be interested in. Again, just one or two. And then the third piece of this is, what are you hoping to accomplish on Parker Dewey? Are you looking for a full-time role in a specific industry? Are you just trying to figure out what you want to do? Why are you here? So here are a few examples of this formula in action. This person, for their adjective, said they were ambitious and tech savvy. Their skills were great writing skills. And they said, I'm just trying to start building real world experience. This person highlighted that they were analytical, organized, and proactive. So those were their adjectives. That they had a certificate in data analytics. I got there. And that they're looking to build awareness of potential career paths. Here we see another example. I'm a hardworking graduate with research skills and experiencing developing and implementing marketing strategies. I'm interested in applying my skills in a mission-driven organization. So hardworking. They highlighted their research skills and experience with marketing, and that they were interested in a particular type of company or organization. So you can see how this will vary from person to person, but it gives the company just a little bit more information about who you are, what you're bringing to the table, and what you are hoping to get from this experience. So with that, most of you also got it exactly right in the poll. 74% of you identified nice is the word we're probably not ever going to use as an adjective in one of these personal statements, because nice isn't really telling us anything additional about you or the skills you're bringing to the table. Most people are at least going to fake nice for the sense of professionalism, and I'm sure all of you are already genuinely nice, so it's just not really giving us anything extra, and that's why you wouldn't use it. All right, so we have talked about personal statements. If y'all have any questions, now if I get bombarded, I won't be able to do all of them, but if somebody has a personal statement they want to throw into the chat and have me review, again, I can't do if everyone in the room does that, but if you want to put one in, I'll be happy to take a look at it too. The next section that is not required but highly encouraged is this experience section. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, my challenge is I don't have experience yet. I was hoping that the micro internship would be my first experience. So what the heck do I put here? And I want to highlight that this doesn't have to be paid experience. As you can see from these examples, these can be projects you've done as part of a class. These can be projects you've done as part of an extracurricular group. These can be volunteer projects, and they don't have to be highly technical. So even if you're just a first-year student, if you're applying for micro internships that involve research or writing skills, almost any first-year student as part of some class has done some sort of research paper or an analysis of something, things like that. And eventually, as you grow, as you hopefully get more micro internships and traditional internships and those types of things, those experiences that you started with are going to get knocked off, and you're going to replace them with ones that are either more technical or more geared towards what you want to do. But this is an opportunity to just give companies considering your application a little more to say, okay, even if they're a first or second year student, they are able to identify the skills that they're building in their classes that would help them with this project. I see someone asking a question about the office hours. It is not one-on-one, it is a group session. So what typically happens in the office hours is I ask people as they're coming in, put your name in the chat, and that's the order we address questions. So whoever comes in first, if they want a profile review, we go step by step through their profile. We give suggestions. Sometimes we look at the responses. So it's not just one-on-one, but you do get one-on-one attention within the session. Hopefully that helps. All right, so that is the experience section. I would only recommend somewhere between 1 and 3 experiences. If you've got a whole ton of experience, go you, have that on your resume. But for this experience section, really hone in on those experiences that are most relevant to what you want to be doing. Our next not required but highly recommended section is the resume section. And I know you may be thinking, well, didn't we just talk about an experience section? Why do I have to do a resume as well? We have seen companies just really show a preference for candidates who take the time to upload a resume. So it's a good practice to do so. And again, a resume, you can go a little bit deeper. With this experience section, you're really highlighting just maybe the first 1 to 3 experiences that are most relevant to what you want to do. So if you're only doing a few of these things I recommend today, definitely make uploading your resume one of them. And as we highlighted earlier, you're going to want to make a version of your resume that does not include your contact information. So review it, make sure it doesn't have your address, it doesn't have your email address, it doesn't have your phone number. And that allows us to make sure that your communication with the company until you're selected stays on the platform. And that's what allows us to make sure that you are safe when you are exchanging communication with these companies until you are selected. You also have some other opportunities to show your skills in this section. So if you're maybe in graphic design, or if you're in coding, graphic design folks might have a portfolio site, coding folks might have a GitHub. This is your opportunity, if you have something like that, to show it off. We also highly recommend adding a LinkedIn account. I've sat with a company who's trying to decide between 2 candidates, said everything else is equal. The only difference is one has a LinkedIn account and the other doesn't. I'm going to pick the one that has the LinkedIn account because it just comes across as a little bit more professional. So not only can it help you get selected, but it's also going to make it easier for you to connect with your supervisor after you've completed your micro internship, ask for recommendations, ask for introductions. It's just a good practice to have one. So if you don't already have a LinkedIn account, there is no cost to create one. It's super easy. You can build on it as time goes on. Would highly recommend getting that started today. Now, this next section, the document section, some folks use, some folks don't. It tends to depend on your industry of interest and how far you are in your degree program. So I gave the example earlier of folks interested in graphic design. Well, if you're a senior, you probably have that portfolio site that you can pop right in there. If you're a first or second year student, maybe you don't have a portfolio site yet, but you have 1 or 2 projects you've done as part of your classes that really demonstrate your skills. And that's where you might use this section, uploading those examples that show employers what you have done in the past if you don't have a site or somewhere else where they can see that. A word to the wise, though, whatever you have titled as whatever you upload. So for example, if I'm uploading a writing sample that I did for a class and it is titled Final Assignment Fall 2024, that is what is going to show up to employers down here. So make sure that you name it something that is going to be both intriguing and clarify exactly what it is. So instead of naming it the assignment for the class, you could name it press release example or flyer designed for local shelter or something like that. I see someone has a question for someone with a personal website that has links on the homepage to the LinkedIn or GitHub. Which website would be the best to include there? Fantastic question. If you have, like, some folks might have an about me site that links to different things, like their LinkedIn, like their portfolio site, like their GitHub that has multiple links. That might be the good one to include, because depending on what the company's interested in, especially if you're applying to a wide range of opportunities, that's going to give them different options. So I would say put in the personal website. If we're going back here, the personal website link would be the one. Then they can get to those other places from there and still put in your LinkedIn link. But great question. All right, folks. So just summarizing what we've covered thus far, make sure you add a photo, get a personal statement in there, highlight experience, even if it's just relevant classroom experience. If you have a relevant website, get that in there. Definitely create a LinkedIn and have that link in there. Even if you don't have one already, this is a great time to create it. 100% get that resume in there. And if you have any examples of work that isn't covered by a website, you can pop those in as well. So if there are any questions about the profile and the best practices for the profile, this is a fantastic time to ask those questions. Here in a minute, we are going to be popping over from your profile to how to apply for these opportunities. So I'm just going to make sure that I've covered all of these. We've covered how to create your account, education location, the demographics. When we pop over to opportunities, you'll see from any section, you can hop over to back to dashboard. This is where we're going to be looking at the projects. If you ever want to make a change to your profile, you can just go to that top right corner, go to High Name, and then go to your profile. So up here is where you're going to be able to do that back and forth. There's also a place, I forgot to cover this, in the profile section, there's an affiliation section. And if you are coming from an organization that has an affiliation set up, from whatever page you come from, they're going to let you know, hey, add this to that section. But there are also 3 affiliations, if they genuinely apply to you, that you can add as well. And what these might do is unlock additional opportunities. So again, make sure you only add them if they genuinely apply to you. But if you are a veteran, make sure you add that in this section. If you are a student athlete, make sure you add that. And if you are part of your school's honors program, sometimes there's some confusion about this one. Not that you're on the honors roll, but that you are part of your school's honors program, you can add that as well. Sometimes companies will post projects specifically for those groups, so that might unlock additional opportunities. All right. Cool. I see some people are sharing some success stories in the chat. Love to see that. And I don't see any questions about the profile. So we're going to hop over to looking for opportunities. Now, a lot of these profile tips that we just went over are also in our Career Launcher tutorial. So I am going to just put the link to that in the chat because it covers all these if you want to review that later. And with that, folks, it is time for us to start looking at the opportunities. So we're going to hop over to this dashboard, and you're going to notice that there are not a lot in the way of filters. Specifically, there is no filter for major. And I know that may seem like an oversight, but I promise y'all it is intentional. We have seen graduating seniors and recent graduates who ended up getting full-time job offers as a result of micro-internship efforts. The micro-internships would have never popped up if they had been able to feature just for their major. Like, those dots just weren't connected, but as they scrolled through, they were like, oh, I do have those skills. I am interested in that, but a company may not have thought to put their major in either. So that's why we encourage you to scroll through. Now, something else you'll notice, and I'll scroll to the bottom real quick so you can see that. is there are always opportunities on the platform, but it's not like a lot of other career platforms where there are tons and tons and tons at any given time. And that's because these micro internships move so quickly. So you can see what these start dates are. It's November 21st right now. This one's going to kick off on the 25th. This one's going to kick off on December 1st. We're actually seeing a little bit more of advance notice on these right now, I think because of the Thanksgiving holiday coming up. Happy early Thanksgiving, everybody. But the point is, these move quickly. So that is why you want to log in regularly, because a lot of times these projects, the next time you log in, many of them are going to have made a selection and new ones are going to be posted. So it's important to log into Parker Dewey a little bit more regularly than you might log into some other platforms. The more you log in, the more opportunities you are going to see. Now, you will also notice that there is a featured project section here. And this is where your school and those affiliations, again, the veteran, the honor student, student athlete, come into play. Because if a company has posted a project exclusively for your school or one of those affiliations, you'll see it in this featured project section. And what it means if you see something here is that it's available to you for one reason or another. It's not available to everyone on the platform. So automatically, your chances of being selected for one of these projects are a little bit better than being selected for one of the open to all micro internships. So make sure that you give anything in this section extra consideration. Now, as you're scrolling through, if you are looking at the titles and you're trying to figure out what interests you, you can hit this drop down and you're going to be able to see more about whatever the micro internship is focused on. You'll be able to see when the company is hoping to kick off, when they'd like the project to be completed, the number of hours they're ballparking. And this is estimated because you don't actually have to track your time as a micro intern. You're paid based on completion of the project. So if you're looking at this project going, oh, hey, I can do this well in 12 hours, even though it's set at 15, that is fine. This is still the amount you'll get paid for completing this project if you are selected. If you're doing something like this for the first time, maybe you're being really meticulous, double checking every step, great practice. But if it takes you an extra 15 minutes beyond 15 hours or whatever it may be, as long as you made the deadline, no one's going to get frustrated or upset with you. So that is a-okay. It offers you a little bit of flexibility. So if you've read the description, you've looked at the timelines and the pay, and you said, yeah, that seems worthwhile, I'm interested in this, that's where you can hit apply for this project. And you are always going to see the first question be this question: why do you think we should select you for this opportunity? So this is a really good question to practice answering, and we have some resources we're going to share to help you answer it well. If there are additional questions and what those questions are, and I say if because sometimes companies will leave it with just this question, but if there are additional questions, the company has decided to add those. So it's really up to the company posting the project. These are not designed to be essays. Typically 2 to 4 sentences are going to be effective. And again, we're going to dig into a resource to help you really answer these effectively and succinctly. But before digging into the resources, just want to highlight that that's it, folks. Once you put in those responses, you hit submit application, and that is how easy it is to apply. The company is going to be able to see a combination of your responses to these questions with your profile information. And at that point, they can message you on the platform. So you can see this message is over here. And as a reminder, we, Parker Dewey, are the employer of record for every single micro internship opportunity. It's always going to be us. So what that means is if any company ever asks you for any sensitive information, if they say, oh, we want to pick you, we just need your social security number, or we just need your address, or we just need your whatever, first of all, we're keeping an eye on this and we're going to be reaching out to you, say, don't do that. But we also want you to be aware to say, Parker Dewey are the only folks that need that information. You do not need that. And then let us know so we can address it if we haven't already. All right. So with that, I want to go back to resources for helping you respond to these questions. So this is when we're going to go back to this professional communication tips for micro interns. We also have some tips for acing these short answer applications. So this is actually where we're going to start. And I'm going to put that in the chat if you want this resource. Acing a short answer application is now here. So we're going to walk through these tips one by one. And the first tip, I know sounds a little bit like a riddle you might hear from a troll under a bridge, but it promise we do have a rhyme or a reason behind it. It's look for the question under the question. And what we mean by that is to think about your response in the context of whatever project you're applying for. Because like I said, every single project, the first question is going to be, why should we select you? But if you're applying for a social media content project versus a coding project versus a data analysis project, your answer should be different to highlight the skills that are relevant to that opportunity. So that's what we mean when we say look for the question under the question. The question is always technically going to be the same for the first one, but your answer should be different based on the skills needed for that opportunity. The next is to use the description to your advantage. So companies have the ability to highlight if they want someone with experience with a certain software or a certain skill set or whatever it may be. Read the description carefully. And if you have a unique skill that they're looking for, make sure you highlight that in your application response because it's going to help you stand out. The third tip, in my opinion, perhaps maybe the most important tip, is to show instead of tell. And that's where we're going to introduce something called the STAR method. And that stands for situation, task, action, and result. So I want you to encourage you to remember STAR, again, situation, task, action, result, whenever you're applying for a micro-internship. Because whenever possible, if you can, in your response, and again, it doesn't have to be crazy long, but in your response, describe a little situation, what you were tasked with, the action you took, and the results that came about from those actions, that's going to help you stand out. So what I'm going to do now is give you a little bit of an example. We're back to our professional communication tips here. And we're going to look at a couple of different responses. And this first response, let's say someone is applying for a social media micro-internship. This is an example of someone telling without showing. So they're saying, you should select me for this project because I have experience making attention-grabbing social media posts. Well, if it's a social media project, that's not a bad example, but I want you, or a bad reason, but I want you to put yourselves in the shoes of the employer. So let's imagine we've got two colleagues at the company who posted the micro-internship. They're having a conversation about who to pick. Colleague A, hey, colleague B, I have to pick someone for that micro-internship, but I'm really just not sure who to pick. Do you have any thoughts? Colleague B, what about the one that has experience making attention-grabbing social media posts? Colleague A, colleague B, it's a social media project that's literally all of them to an extent. I have no idea which one you're talking about. And scene. Now, when we look at the second example, this is someone who used the STAR method to describe a situation, a task, an action, and a result. It's still only 4 sentences. One, well, my highlight didn't come there. 1, 2, 3, 4. But I want to read it and I want to reenact that little situation. So they technically have the same reason. You should select me because I have experience creating attention-grabbing social media posts. Then they describe a situation as the social media chair for my sorority. Then they give the task. I was in charge of the social media campaign for our recent Night in Pink fundraiser. Then they give their action. I planned a series of posts and videos across 3 different social media channels over the course of a month leading up to the event. And then they give the result. One of the videos I created got record engagement and contributed to increased attendance from last year's event. So let's imagine then that this person not only has this little situation, task, action, result in their response, but they've also taken the time in their profile to maybe upload a PDF that links to those social media accounts. Now let's replay that conversation between 2 colleagues. Colleague A, hey, colleague B, I need to pick someone for that micro-internship we posted, the one with social media. I don't know who to pick. Do you have any thoughts? Colleague B, oh, what about the one that did those videos for their Night in Pink fundraiser? I just thought those were really cool. I'd love to see those skills applied to our project. Colleague A, I know exactly who you're talking about. I watched those videos too, and I thought they were great. Let's pick them. End scene. So a little cheesy, yes, but it shows you the difference between just telling and showing and how employers are able to really conceptualize what skills are you bringing to the table and how can I see those applied to my project. So going back to our tips for answering, the next one is to mirror the tone in your writing. So if you're reading a micro-internship posting, acknowledge my slang these days is not going to be to all of y'all standards, but I'm going to try. And it says we need someone to make some bussin' TikTok videos for our account, no cap, all facts, no printer. And that resonates with you and makes sense to you, then match that energy in your response. If you see an opportunity and it's using very stereotypical professional language that resonates with you and makes sense to you, match that energy in your response. So basically what we're saying here is match the energy that's being put out by the company. Again, you don't want to make these too long. 2 to 4 sentences can be totally effective. They're not essays. But when possible, you do want to go beyond a yes or a no. So for example, if a company asks, do you have experience using XYZ software? If you've never used that software before in your life, no would technically be a correct answer. But maybe you've used a software that does very similar things that has given you a lot in the way of transferable skills. So skills that you've only ever used in this other software, but would definitely be applicable or allow you to quickly pick up this new one. If you just say no, the company is going to go, oh, well, I don't know if we want to pick this person. But if you say, while I haven't used this software, I have used this other software, which allows me to do all these things that you can do in the one you're looking for, that company is more likely to go, oh, okay, well, then they're going to be able to pick this up quickly. We should still really consider that candidate. So those are some of those tips for making sure that you are responding to questions effectively. So we have talked about how to read the description. We've talked about how to respond to these questions. Also want to give you all a little bit of a preview into what companies see. Again, they are going to be able to see a combination of your profile and how you respond to those application responses. And that's really it. They can message you at this point if they want to do a follow-up question or set up a brief interview. But most of the time for companies, this is so low risk, low commitment, so cost effective. They're going to make their selection without any additional interview process, which is why it is so important, y'all, for you to make sure your profile is in good shape and your application responses are thoughtful, free from errors. And that's why we spend so much time on those 2 things in this webinar, because those are really, most of the time, the only 2 things that companies are going to use to go off of when making their selections. Now I want to take a minute to talk about navigating the other pieces of the platform. We've already been in the opportunities dashboard. Again, this is where you'll look for projects. Pretty intuitive. When you've applied, you're going to be able to see your projects in the applied section. Anything you're still being considered for will be in this active application section. If you were not selected for a project, you'll be able to know the status by looking in your past applications. So as brought up before, companies don't necessarily respond to every application, but it's not like you're just hanging out wondering what happened. You can always know the status of your application by checking here in the applied section. If you were selected for a project, you're going to get an email letting you know with next steps, and you're going to see it here. Once that project has been completed, pretty intuitive, you're going to see it pop over here. And this is where you'll also have the ability to see any feedback the company may have left for your work. And we've already covered this section, but any questions or follow-up you get from companies before the official selection takes place, that's going to be happening in this messages tab. So you may be thinking, okay, I know how to get my profile good. I know how to respond to these questions. What happens once I actually get picked? How am I going to be supported? What are next steps? When you get selected, again, you are going to get an email letting you know, and that email is going to contain the contact information for the professional at the company that posted the project. You're going to be encouraged to reach out to them so you can set up a kickoff meeting and get to know them. Again, this is your opportunity to extend your network and get to know a professional. Now, this is when I want to take a quick moment to make a quick but passionate plea. Please, 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 please make sure that in your Parker Dewey profile, you have an email address that you check regularly. You can change it at any time by going to this profile section, but there are a few things that are more heartbreaking for us at the Parker Dewey team than seeing someone that has a great profile. They responded to the questions, they got selected, and then they didn't respond to get started because they didn't see the email. Again, companies tend to want to move fast on this. If they don't hear from the micro intern they've selected within 24 hours, they are liable to move on and deselect you and select someone else. So make sure not only do you have an email address that you check regularly, but that you are actually checking it regularly. So If you run into any struggles along the way, let's say you're having trouble getting the supervisor to respond to you, you realize you're in over your head, the project scope feels bigger than you thought it was going to be, anything like that. These aren't things that happen commonly, but let's say one of them does. Don't forget that we, Parker Dewey, are here to help. So reach out to us, don't get overwhelmed, don't ghost, contact us and say, hey, this is what's going on, and I'm not sure how to handle it. We are going to be here to support you. Another support system you have at your disposal is potentially your faculty or staff or alumni mentors that you may have. And I say potentially because when you are selected for a micro internship, really by even using the platform, you're agreeing to something called an NDA. And what that stands for is non-disclosure agreement. Now, some of you may have heard of something called a non-compete agreement. That is something totally different. That is not at play when it comes to Parker Dewey. It wouldn't make any sense to have you agree to a non-compete. But what a non-disclosure agreement is saying, okay, if I'm working on something that is sensitive for this company, I'm not going to go blabbing their secrets out to the world. So when you connect with that micro internship supervisor and you get the details for your project, it's a good idea to ask them, is anything that I'm working on confidential, sensitive, anything like that? Most of the time, micro interns aren't working on anything like that. They're going to say, no, you're good to go. But you should still ask, as I work on this, I maybe wanted to get some feedback from faculty or from my mentor. Is that okay? And as long as they give you that permission, it's a great idea to make sure you make use of those networks, to make sure you are putting your best foot forward with that project. And we often get a lot of questions about pay too, because again, every single micro internship on the Parker Dewey platform is paid. Pay is, processed once a month. So let's say you completed your micro internship today. It's November 21st, and your supervisor marks it complete today. That pay gets processed at the end of the month. So depending on how fast your bank is, and assuming that you filled out the paperwork we sent you when you were selected, you should see that pay in your account the first 1 or 2 days of December. Let's say that you complete the project on December 2nd, and that's when it's marked complete. You're going to have that process pay at the end of December and then see it in your bank account the first or second day of January, again, depending on how quick your bank is. So that's why if you complete your micro internship early in the month, there might be a little bit of a gap between when you complete it and when you get paid. Don't think, oh, Parker Dewey stiffed me, where's my money? It's pay is just processed once a month. And if you have any questions about it, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Again, we, Parker Dewey, are the folks that will be processing your pay. Don't ask the supervisor at the company, ask us. We'll be able to answer your questions. All right. When you get selected, you'll also receive this micro internship success checklist. So it's not like you have to figure out everything by yourself. We have resources, including templates for reaching out to that supervisor for the first time. So you can feel confident that you're reaching out professionally, that you're making a good impression. We have resources to help make sure that you understood everything from that meeting and that you are ready to go and meet expectations. We have other resources to help you set yourself up for success. Depending on the type of micro internship, maybe you're going to have check-in meetings. If that's the case, we've got agenda templates. Maybe you're going to check in via email. We've got templates for those as well. So basically just highlighting, y'all are not on your own. We've got lots of resources here from a professionalism standpoint to help you make sure you're making a great impression. Very similarly, after the micro internship, you're going to receive a post-micro internship success checklist. We encourage you to let us know about your experience. A reminder to review your feedback on the platform, to make sure this is added to your resume and to your LinkedIn, and we've got a guide for doing so. A reminder that regardless of the company you're working with, you're going to add this as an independent consultant or an independent contractor of Parker Dewey. And unless they have given you permission, you're going to want to describe the client as opposed to name them. So this is another part of that NDA or non-disclosure agreement at play. Sometimes it's to your benefit, even if they say, yeah, you can use our name. If they're a smaller or a local company and there may not be wide name recognition, you might be better off saying a local nursery or a local, marketing company or whatever it may be, as opposed to giving the name. Even if it's a larger company, if for some reason they don't want their name posted in there, This again guides you on how to describe the client that you're working with. So even after the micro internship, we're really trying to set you up to make the most of this opportunity and leverage it into the next one, whether that be an internship at that company, a full-time job offer, or maybe something else. So with that, folks, we're coming full circle to those challenges or students who had challenges that we saw at the beginning. If you recall, these are students who are saying, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I couldn't afford unpaid internships. I was trying to figure out how to make a pivot. I couldn't get my first step or first opportunity to get my foot in the door. And I won't read all of these quotes to you, but I'll let you read them. And you'll get the slides afterwards as well, where these students explain how micro internships really helped them address those challenges. Now, if you do want to read some more testimonials, we've got quite a few of them from students from all different types of majors, institutions, international students, domestic students, students in very rural areas, students in cities. So I just put that link in the chat. If you're motivated by seeing other people be successful, check out those stories. And with that, folks, if you haven't already, create that account or update that profile, make sure it is ready to apply. So when you see an opportunity you're excited about, you are ready to hop on it. Again, a reminder that these move quickly, so log in regularly. Don't wait if you see something of interest. Again, we've seen micro internships typically go within a week of being posted. I've seen some make selections in as little as a few hours. So that logging in regularly helps, and applying right away helps as well. And again, if you're looking for opportunities in a specific sector or geographic area or anything like that, and you're just not seeing those opportunities that you want, come to our Creating Your Own Opportunities webinar. That is a great opportunity for you to take the initiative and really try to create some of those opportunities that you may not be seeing at this stage. Something else I encourage everyone to do is we do have a LinkedIn page where folks can see perspectives from previous micro interns, get reminders about events, get reminders about resources, see our regularly scheduled newsletters. So this is just a really good resource. If you haven't already, that link is now in the chat. We encourage you to give that a follow as well. And with that, folks, that is the end of the formal presentation. If you have questions, this is a great time to put those in the chat. Happy to answer. If you have a question that is easier to be asked audibly, you can also raise your hand. This is the stage when I will be happy to unmute you so you can ask that question out loud. But as we wait for those questions, just want to say thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I hope that this was helpful. Looking forward to seeing y'all active on the Parker Dewey platform and hopefully writing some success stories about some of you in the very near future.